All right, ready? Here we go. Oh my goodness. Yeah, well, I'll get to this, but first I want to give you a little brief history of, hey, I'm Angela Shelton. Those of you who know me, God bless you. I love you so much. But let me talk to the ones who don't know me for just a second. So this all started, let's see, I come from the South. I'm the poor child in the mountains, barefoot, Kirsten by the age of 8, poor as, and I became a model young, like 14 I started. And actually this is a little side note, I actually collected cans in front of the rich kids' houses so I could get the money to go to New York City, where I then eventually became a model and made tons of money and lived all over the world. Crazy. Life is just wild. Still have some of those little old thought patterns, which is part of what I talk about, where you get stuck. And I come from, child sexual abuse, domestic violence, along with the poverty, foster care system. I was removed from my home with my biological dad and put into the foster care system where I was then starved, and it was horrible, horrible. So I grew up in some interesting circumstances. I was told that I would never amount to nothing, but there's me, the little Southern, ever since I was a little kid, and like I said, I collected cans to get to New York City. I became a model. I'd written my whole life. I've always been a writer. That's probably my one forte. If you had to pick one, besides being an excellent director, come on, see my boxing movie, would you? I've always written, and I was writing as a kid, and as a writer, when I became a model, I was living in Europe. I was living in Paris and Italy and Germany and all over. And that's a whole other story. I have a book I have called Dumb Model. Yeah. And so I was writing a book when I was living in Paris about my mother and all her whole history. And I was calling it Every Tom, Dick, and Harry. And when I was an actress, model turned actress in New York City, I went on my very first acting audition, and I booked the lead of this movie, Gavin O'Connor's very first movie. It's called Comfortably Numb. And he and I became very good friends. Ended up getting married. That's a whole other thing. We're divorced now, but God bless him. And he had read my book and was like, holy shit, this is a movie. And we made one chapter of that book a movie, which is Tumbleweeds. Tumbleweeds about my mom. By the way, that's only one chapter. Okay. And so then I went from a writer writing books and blogs and all kinds of stuff, and I won all these writing contests ever since I was a little kid. It's just been my outlet has been as a writer. Then oh God, after Tumbleweeds, I was I walked right into screenwriting. So I became a screenwriter. And I was writing movies in Hollywood. I was getting hired to adapt books, which I'm very good at, by the way. Very fast. I'm a little bit crazy. And it was awesome. I was living in Los Angeles. I bought a house. I bought a car cash. That was interesting. And I went on I was fulfilling my dreams. Never really looking at that core stuff ever. And then the writer's strike was happening in 2001, and I was at a meeting with HBO pitching another job, and they were like, well, the writer's strike is coming. Do you have any ideas for some documentaries? Because, we could help you fund a documentary. We can't really do a, movie, hire you because of the writer's strike, right? And I literally pulled it out of my, I was literally like, well, actually, yeah. What if I went around the country and I met every Angela Shelton just to see who they are, who are you, where are you going, and where have you been? Or who are you, where have you been, and where are you going? And ask all the women who have my name and just use the name as a vehicle through which to interview women in America. And they were like, that's genius. And the reason that I thought that is because I had met another Angela Shelton who was an actress. And I was like, oh my God, we should do a show together. One woman show, not really. And that didn't happen. And then I was like going to pick up a prescription, and they asked me which Angela Shelton I was. I was like, what? And then I got the mail from another Angela Shelton. Then I heard from another Angela Shelton in San Diego, and I was living in LA at the time. And I was like, wow, that interesting. Like, what if we just interviewed all of them, right? And so they were like, oh my God, that's a genius idea. So what do? This is how I roll. I went home and I started calling Angela Sheltons. And then I got addicted because the first one was in the shower. I wrote a whole book about this called Finding Angela Shelton. The movie is made. It's called Searching for Angela Shelton. I was on Oprah and 48 Hours and Lifetime and Larry King Live. And like, I've been on the road for literally a decade plus with that movie and the documentary. With the documentary and the book, and then the workbooks and all the other stuff. Because what happened is, as I was interviewing women just to see, who are you, where have you been, where are you going? They asked me, who are you, where have you been, and where are you going first, before I give you my credit card. I'm like, I'm not asking for credit cards. I'm just like interviewing women. Even back then, people were nervous about scams. Gah. So in interviewing these women and revealing my own self, by the way, that's the way to be the best interviewer and get the best, is just literally like reveal yourself. And I told them, I was like, oh, I come from a pretty intense past in the South. Not that the South means like you're going to get an intense past. I love the South. And, then I moved to LA after being a model, and I've been married times. And now I'm making a movie. The first movie is Tumbleweeds came out. You should see, it's awesome. And now this is the second movie. And all of them were like, what? What do you mean? What kind of a past? And I was like, domestic violence and child sexual abuse and, stuff like that. It's fine. I have a therapist. She's expensive. And they were like, oh, really? Me too. And I'm like, holy fuck. This was in 2001. And it turns out that 70% of the Angela Sheltons that I interviewed had been victims of child sexual abuse, rape, and or domestic violence. It literally was like I thought it was going to be funny. I wanted to make comedy, like, hello, check out my comedies. Funny. But no, it wasn't funny. And then one of the Angela Sheltons was tracking sexual predators, and she lived in the same town as my father, my biological father, who I hadn't seen since I was 14. And he was my perp, and me and my stepbrother and my stepsister. And there's an Angela Shelton in his town who's tracking sexual predators. And in the little film we made, we arrive on Father's Day. It's like, you can't write that shit. If you put it in a movie, it'd be like, or a script, they're like, well, it's a little bit too easy. You have to, change that up. It's like, it's also called lightning in a bottle. And so literally it was lightning in a bottle. Like, how can you pass that up? And I thought, literally, like, not very smartest tool in the tool shed sometimes. And I was like, I'll go on my day off just to like confront him. And all my crew that I'd hired was like, are you insane? Like, that is the movie. I'm like, no, I don't even want to be in this movie. I'm just going to interview women. I'm not in it. And they're like, are you dumb? I'm like, maybe. Maybe. Cut to my book, dumb model. I'm like, shit. So I go and I confront my dad on Father's Day. And now that movie, still, to this day, is used in sociology classes, women's studies, women's resource centers, domestic violence shelters, rape crisis centers. I'm famous in rape crisis centers. Not everybody could say that. Oh God. But it's a good way, because I am honestly a big, giant, radically honest voice. Ever since I went on the road and I started sharing that movie and what I was learning about women, I had to face my own shit. Like, it literally threw me, kicking and screaming, into my own healing, that I thought I was okay. Like, I was like, I'm fine. I'm, sure, I'm fine. Like flatlined fine. Do you know that feeling when you're flatlined fine? You're like, I'm fine, but do you have do you have guts about you and your heart and your soul and everything? So, yeah. And so it threw me into my own healing. And just the talk therapy was not enough for me. even my therapist said that. She was like, at the time, she's wonderful. Hey, Catherine, I love you. A great therapist really is only going to get you to answer your own question. What did she say? So, yeah. So I went super into my own healing. What I did is I traveled. I literally left Hollywood. Like I got the whole, I was with a huge agency and making tons of money and living. I had the house in the hill and I bought my car cash, and I just left everything. I went on the road because I was faced with, the PR company, the manager, the agent, all of them like in a little line, like, you talk a little bit too much about incest and rape. It's a little uncomfortable. And it cut to like the Me Too movement came along and I'm just like, yep. And I was like, I can't not talk about it now, especially when I've seen that this literally is, here's a pandemic for you. Children are getting raped. That's what's happening. And they're like, oh, can you write this movie for a pop star or something? And I was like, I just can't. In hindsight, I should have taken that job. But I just couldn't. I had to go on the road. And so I literally, me and my little backpack, I was on the road for over 10 years. And that is how I've been down every highway. I've been to every state, 100%. I've spoken all over the place, from military bases to conferences to Congress. And I became fully educated for 10 years plus on the facts of life when it comes to domestic violence and child sexual abuse and sexual assault. Holy cow. Trauma-informed care is one of the proper terms. And then I went and learned every healing technique I possibly could so that I could then share it, because I saw that as I'm meeting these survivors that were everywhere. What blew my mind in traveling is that this is not a woman's issue by any stretch. I mean, I could be in a taxi talking to some dude who's taking me in the taxi, and this is what I'm all about, by the way, is starting conversations. And who knows, you could be quiet and listen to your headphones and not talk, or you could talk. And I started talking. I'm always talking. And this, one of many, many examples is a guy taking me to the airport or to the conference or whatever, wherever we're going. We strike up a conversation. What are you doing here? Oh, I have my movie. What's the movie about? Yada, yada. He was a victim of child sexual abuse. Never told anybody. And here I am in his taxi and he's disclosing. And I'm like, wow. Then you're in a position where I'm like, I can't change your life or save you, but I can give you all of these resources. So that's also when I started the Survivor Manual, just to provide resources that are not competing with each other. Because a lot of times you get these nonprofits that are awesome. I know them. I know these people. They're awesome, but it's you can't share each other sometimes. It's not like collaborating on social media. It's because they're vying for the same money. And it's so I started the Survivor Manual. So it's we can just put everybody up there and there is no competition. It's just hey, what works for you? What healing technique works? What nonprofit can help you? How can you get the fuck out of, especially domestic violence? Domesticshelters.org. I'm gonna give a little hello to them. So I learned all this and I met these people and I saw that, this is truly outrageous. And it's not a women's issue. This is not men against women at all. This is, we're getting for real. And we're given total misinformation about it. Holy cow. And so little old me, I went on the road and I was like, man, I love you people. I just it changed everything for me. It changed every project I do. It gave me my core mission is that every single thing I do, all my projects, my boxing movie, even my golf movie, my comedy cooking show, every single thing I do is kind of like Alice Paul. If you don't know her, she women's suffrage. That's how we had the vote, Elizabeth Stanton, but Alice Paul. And she says that, that the movement is all like a mosaic. And we all put in our little stones, and then in the end we have this beautiful mosaic That's very much me. I am a mosaic, and I'm also like a fireworks because I'm outrageously, and I just shoot off truth. And so I am a wild firecracker. So if you just met me, or if you're coming in from wherever you're coming in, like I might say some crazy outrageous shit. Like I will. And it is with purpose. You know, I have a comedy cooking show. I go on the road speaking. I did a prison boxing movie. I have a golf comedy. But all of it is connected. All of it has the same core mission of inspiring people to live happily ever after, no matter what they've been through. And liberating survivors from that pain, suffering, fear, doubt, and worry. Because I know them. I know you, because I was there too, where you're like stuck in that like life, that like flat line, where you're like, oh my God, I can't tell anybody. I live in pain and suffering. I'm not going to tell anybody because you have to. Yeah, that's where I come into my shit. Fuck that shit. Let's heal that stuff. Which brings me to this. So I'm on the road. I'm talking. I'm in my hometown, my home state, North Carolina. I'm from Asheville. I love it there very much. So I'm speaking on stage, and very much how it happens when you start like doing healing work, meditation work, whatever you're doing, like it's with other people. It says that in the Bible. You know, like that is where you have huge transformation. And when you have witnesses and when you see other people, like you're helping each other, right? And so I'm there and I'm talking to this girl on stage. I'm like kind of using her as an example because she had asked a question about self-mutilation and self-hatred, which I saw a lot. Like I personally had that, not self-mutilation, but self-abuse and self-hatred. Like I never cut myself or did any of the markings, but I would beat the shit out of myself. Like that's like, don't tell those secrets. I'm like, well, I'm telling it because somebody else is going to hear that and be like, oh my God, she said that out loud. Me too. How did you heal that shit? I'm like, come here. So that's my little service work. Making that documentary 100% saved my life. It completely changed my life. I lost everything. I lost my entire life in Hollywood. Don't live in Hollywood anymore. But I was thrown into the truth, which is not Hollywood. And it threw me into, oh man, like what are we doing here? Like, what are we doing here? How about like, I'm going to share my truth. And actually like, I have a box, literally, I'm looking at it across the room of like all these letters and like people that have been like, it was because it's something you said or did that I transformed my whole life. And that's like, yes, awesome. See my boxing movie. That's all I want from you. It's not true. I want lots of things. But everything was interconnected, right? And it made me face my own self-hatred, and it made me stop it. And how I stopped it was literally telling somebody else what they should do. And it became like, oh, like there was this beautiful college girl who was self-mutilating, right? And I was like, but, you know, did the whole thing like, but well, you're so pretty. Why are you hurting yourself? Like, that's like somebody saying to domestic violence, why don't you leave? To a victim of domestic violence. You're like, that's obviously you're not informed about domestic violence. That there is no such thing as like, why don't you just leave? It's complicated. And also, you better think before you leave and make a plan so you don't die. You know, there are little things like that. So I'm talking to this girl, right? And I had a vision. I am a writer, first and foremost, and a creator, and I make movies, and I, you know, don't hold it against me that I was a model. I still got it. I'm going to start doing some TikToks. So I was looking at her, and I literally had the vision that, again, changed my life. Like, I leveled up. I was literally like, I saw the sword of trauma. I saw it. I was like, holy fuck. Like, no matter what we've been through, right? Okay, here we go. Ready? We're going on a ride. In my kitchen. I have a cooking show. Did I mention that? It's hilarious. So, trauma is like getting pierced with a sword, right? Like you're like, and I saw it. I could like see, not like crazy psychopath, but I'm like visually, I'm like, huh. And then I saw like I had one, and everybody had like, you have this sword. So whatever happened, it could have been, you know, diddled by your uncle, soccer coach, somebody got a hold of you. It was, you know, your grandmama did some weird shit, you know, like it's literally, I've heard it all, like nothing surprises me anymore at all. And I have mad respect for it. It's like every story is different, but they're all somehow connected to, like, you were traumatized, like you get like the sword, right? So you have a sword in you. Okay, that happened. Mine was child sexual abuse, domestic violence, foster care system. And, you know, you can live like that. That's what my grandmother taught me on my dad's side. My perpetrator dad, his mom literally lived, you could see, once I saw it everywhere. I was like, oh, she literally didn't breathe. And she would just go about her life like she's just ironing. It's like, everything's fine. Don't talk about that. Don't talk about anything. Because if you talk, you're gonna touch this, and then it's gonna send waves of pain all through my body, and I can't talk because my voice is up here because I'm in so much pain, right? So yeah, so like this sort of trauma, I saw it everywhere, and I was like, holy shit, we are all wounded by this thing. But the beauty of seeing it like that was it had an end point. It didn't like literally, okay, yeah, it's gonna fucking hurt, like yeah, but then you have it. I'm like, oh my God. That's amazing. And that doesn't mean like, what happened for me is like seeing that it wouldn't last forever because it had an endpoint. Because two things I've noticed when I've traveled with people, I know you can't put things into categories, but I'm doing it. Two things I've noticed is people have a problem or a fear or a total like freeze mode when they're faced with, oh, you're gonna cry. The other one is, which was mine, if you face your rage or your anger or it's rage, which comes from hurt, you know, it's all connected. But if you're getting angry, right, or fear of crying, those are like the two things I've noticed. People like me, like I could cry at a dog commercial, like I could cry right now. I'm surprised that I'm not crying actually. So that was like a super fear of like facing rage, right? And other people are fearful of crying. And I've met them. I've met this like tough, like that tough one that's like, I'll cut you. Like they have no problem touching their anger and rage. You should read their comments on social media. God. Like they're fine as far as they're fully okay in their anger. But they have a problem crying. And those people, because I have that thing where everybody tells me their deepest, darkest secrets. Like I could be in the freaking line at the grocery store and I'm going to hear, I never told anybody this before, but blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, try dating. Oh, Lord. I mean, I'm serious. I have like, I've heard stories. Oh, God. Cut to me eating, just listening to another tear-jerking story. I'm sorry for everyone. So, but what I saw is that person that can't face, like, they're like, oh my God, if you had me do this and face this and I'm going to cry, I'm never going to stop crying and I'll just literally die crying and I'll cry me a river. And I'm like, well, it doesn't last forever when you can see that. And for me, it was anger. If I touch my anger, oh Lord, people are going to die. I don't know if that's a good thing. I think I'll just stay quiet because if I touch my anger, I don't know what I'm going to do. You know how I touched my anger? I got into relationships with angry men. Holy, like you have to be really radically honest with yourself to even see that. You're like, it's not a matter of blaming a bunch of like, that's angry guys, angry men, toxic masculinity. I hate them all day long. When in reality, I'm like, oh shit. I was attracted to angry fucking men because I was angry and not expressing it, not letting it out. But boy, did they let it out. And they would have big explosions and break things. And God, thank you, baby Jesus, I never had like full domestic violence, but that's still, it's in the realm, like verbal abuse and angry and throwing things and punches holes in the wall. And they would do it with other people too, you know, which was mainly other people, not at me. And I would feel like a little bit of like, like, I wish I could do that. And that is like huge to admit that. That's like when you see it. So like the first step in the sort of trauma workbook, which I had ended up doing workshops and workbooks, and now there's a whole course. Click there and get it. It's, you have to acknowledge it. And that takes a huge honesty with yourself. You're like, how has this affected your life? I was in relationships with really angry men, like angry. And I sort of loved it, and would never say that out loud or admit that, because you're like, well, what the hell are you doing? Because it's feeding some deep need in my life to be angry, right? And once I experienced this or had the vision, I was like, oh, wow. And so I started practicing ways to express my rage. I got one of those boxing, funny, I ended up doing a boxing movie. You should see it. But big bold letters, watch my boxing movie right here. So I got a boxing, one of those stand-up thingies, and I broke it. I like broke it, snapped in half. It's like, I broke that because I'm like, I needed to get it out. I needed to get all of the rage out for myself, because ever since I was a little kid, I don't know if you probably, those of you who've been through it, you might really relate to this. I protected everybody. I was the kid that would kick your fucking ass. The bully at school, I broke his arm and I was in second grade. And the teacher, because he punched a girl again, like he did every day. And then he came up to me in the little jungle gym thingy. And he came up to me and just literally walked up to me and punched me in the stomach. And I was like, boy. I flipped him. How did I even know how to do that? I'm like, Wonder Woman. And I flipped him over the whole thing and he broke his arm. And I went to the teacher. I'm like, well, that jackass is like underneath the slide there crying. I think I heard him. And she literally was like, look away, walk away. Thank you very much. And I was like, shit, all right. And I did that. At 11, I was like in the little neighborhood because I knew the one guy was raping his sister. And I called that shit out in the street. Back it up. Like, to where I can't, get caught. Like, I was like, and I'm like, don't kill me. But I never did it for myself or in my own life. I never, ever stood up for myself, ever. It's just actually, recent, to be honest. When you're like, hey, not allowed. Go fuck yourself. Like, I'm like, oh God. I could do it for everybody else, but I couldn't do it for myself. And I'm like, holy cow. So there's always layers to healing and layers of awareness and like what we're going through. Holy shit. But first would be to see it, right? You see like, holy cow, like that actually has affected me my whole life. And it doesn't have to be sexual trauma. It could be you witnessed trauma. Your parents were incarcerated. Your parents were freaking alcoholics, like not even present. You were neglected, like that. It's like, and you see the effects it had on you. And then you're going to have to pull it out. What? There comes the release. And it's like, there's all kinds of healing techniques to do that. Like, oh God, honestly, just like going and telling your story and purging it and literally like, like the old school, they're going to put like, imagine if you're actually going to have the sword pulled out of your body, right? You don't just do it on a Tuesday afternoon. Like, you make a plan, you have your help, you got some water, you got some blankets, you got your comfort. So that's why I wrote all of like workbooks and workshops and stuff that have been used literally for over a decade around all these, retreat centers, support centers, resource centers. Therapists use it with their survivor clients, and it's really incredible because it's so simple and it gives like now you can use this analogy in your own work. Right? So if you remove it, right? Okay, we're gonna purge it, and we're gonna tell the story, and you're gonna actually be really, really radically honest with yourself. Whoops. Then you don't look at this for a minute. You have to heal the wound, because it's left this big wound in you, right? Well, duh. And some people don't just have this. You could have this, and you could have like a Chinese dagger. You could have it all over your damn body. Some people. Sometimes I feel like in the carnival, like the girl that's like strapped to the wheel, and they're throwing knives. Like, I'm like, yeah. What if they all went in? Yeah, it's kind of how I feel. So there's like that visual works so well, and it works. And so then when you have removed it, purged, you have this big gaping wound, which is what I did for years, was the healing that shit. I even have a podcast, 101 Ways to Heal That Shit. So it's like every single healing technique, and there's not just one. And anybody who tells you like, well, you have to do this, and this is the only thing that works, they're probably crazy. The number one thing I saw, that, because I've tried, I mean, I did everything, and I was living in LA. I went to, I've been to Sedona. I've been to the, I've been to the Life Vessel. I've been to the crystals, the gong over your vagina. Like, I've tried a lot, and I'm willing to keep trying, because I'm practicing. It's like, I love learning all this stuff. But the number one biggest healing thing I have ever discovered, still use it today, might use it right now, is what you're saying to yourself in your head. Because what comes with this is, I'm a piece of shit, I'm ugly, I'm disgusting, I'll never amount to anything, damaged goods, blah, 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 blah. Like, it's a little hamster on a wheel of our brains that are just like, you piece of shit. And when you remove that and you start healing the wound, you're like, oh, I have to retrain what I'm telling myself in my head. And your belief system, you got to like retrain your belief system. And that's all what you're saying to yourself in your head. It's actually quite simple. Yet so like, what? What do you mean? No, truly, it is what you're saying to yourself in your head. So then you like heal the wound, which there's a whole bunch of stuff. I'll give you a link. And I'm open to trying new things. If anybody wants to be like, hey, come try this. I'm like, awesome. I'm a guinea pig. Send me in. Then you're like, okay, cool. I'm cool. I have a great scar to talk about at parties. I ruin Thanksgivings. Do I? Be careful bringing me over is all I gotta say, because I'm gonna start talking about some heavy shit. Like, it's what I do. I had somebody tell me, they're like, oh, here at Heart Lake, we don't go deep. We don't go deep at all because it upsets people. And I'm like, I live in the deep end. Like, I'm only going to live in the deep end. I'm in the deep waters. But, I could float. And then, so I live in the deep end. We're going to talk about some healing, heavy shit, right? So you heal the wound, and then you have it. And it's like, oh, shit. You can see, like, I cursed. I did it. You can see that the trauma that you experienced is not you. Because especially survivors of child sexual abuse and sexual assault, but especially child sexual abuse, I've just seen it. Like, you get into your brain, you almost have like a neon sign that says like incest survivor, totally bugged up. And you think that is you. Like, it's some honestly neon sign on your head. And the thing is, it is a neon sign on your head. And you will attract the perpetrator again, and then get into another relationship with another guy who's just like your daddy. Shit. And because it is an attraction, because it's a belief system, because of this. And you're like, what? Yeah, you got to retrain the brain, right? And rewire and retell yourself. And then you're like, oh, when you remove it, that's why I love this analogy. The sort of trauma is not you. It's things that happen to you. And that you can remove it and then use it. Oh, wait, what? Like, the trauma that I experienced, I could use? Why, yes. Why, yes, you can. Because that becomes your core microphone, your paintbrush, your sword, if you want to get into that stuff. For me, it's a movie camera. This right here, your gaming console. You make a game. I've got a game to make about killing child rapists and human traffickers. What? Sure, call me. So like you can be creative with your experiences. And somebody recently in a webinar I was doing asked like, well, wait, how could your trauma end up being something that's good that you use? Because it's your experiences and you morph that into your creativity. Because creatives world and whatever you're doing, whether it's in business or you really want to write that book or you really want to sing that song. I have a recording studio, by the way, if you really want to do that. But so if you really, what you want to do and what you're passionate about, right, is only going to be excellent when you reveal the truth, which is this, when it comes from your own truth and what you really know about, it is better. It's 100% better. That script is better. The song is better. Your book is better when you're really like actually revealing the shit. And you're really going there. Doesn't mean you have to like tell details of your story. It's the essence of survival and the essence of the human spirit and the essence of like being a divine spark of wonderfulness that you are. Once you can actually show that, once you get out of this, because this right now is a huge issue. Right now is like you can just be in survival mode where you're just surviving. Like today, I'm not going to kill myself, or today I'm not going to beat the hell out of myself or self-mutilate like that. Oh, good. That's good. You know, step one, don't kill yourself today. But that is in like survival mode. But then once you've actually started to purge that and heal the wound, and then you have it, you're like, oh, well, what are you going to do now? Actually, that's where the scary work comes in. What? Yeah, that's where the scary work comes in because you have it now. What are you going to do? And the people that I'm talking to are doing it. Like I wanted to quit being an executive director of the domestic violence shelter. I wanted to open a jazz blues bar. Done. I never moved in my body, so I'm 80 something years old and I'm gonna join a dance class. Done. Like, awesome. I actually have these stories in me that are erotic, but I feel terrible. I'm gonna tell them. Awesome. Done. Like, just amazing. Like, amazing, life-changing, altering, like you literally switched it 180 degrees. That's what I see. And it comes from getting over the fear, right? So when you're like, you see it, you remove it, you heal the wound, and then you have it. And then it becomes like, ooh, sword play, right? So what are you playing with? Don't you say, well, that's a different show. What are you playing with? And how does this show up in your life? In good ways now, instead of all the trauma ways. That is fucking scary for a lot of people because what are you going to do? What is your real life mission that's not being a victim and not being a wounded just in the survival cycle? I get it. I 100% get it. I've been there and I know the people and I've seen it time and time again. And so I'm telling you like, hey, like I have a lot of information, a lot. And a lot of like funny, and it goes back to like that mosaic, like this is kind of like a mosaic, right? It's like Alice Paul quoted that the movement is like a mosaic that each one of us puts in a little stone. And then, oh my gosh, we end up with this beautiful mosaic. For me personally, I am a wild firecracker. I'm not only I'm like a mosaic with they're moving and lit up. And I get that. But that is my sword play, right? Because when you come into my world, you're not going to get just funny. You're not going to get just heavy. It's like a bunch of H's. Hilarious, healing, heavy, hot. Click here. What? Hilarious, humorous, heavy, healing. What else? Heart baby. Yeah, see that movie. So it is a mosaic that we're all contributing to, and these are going to be my contributions, is I have a ton of information, and it's like I have it all over the place in, I don't mean like like a firework. Like you can picture me, and I wonder if you're like this too, especially as a survivor, a creative survivor, that you have so many ideas and so many talents, and because you're like a little kid doesn't just paint. Like we're gonna dance and we're gonna paint and we're going to laugh and then we're gonna cry and then we're gonna get in the mud. Like, yes to all of that. Yes, because healing for me is a full circle. It's all of it. It's not just healing the brain. It's not just healing the heart. It's healing the down there. It's healing all chakras. That's also why I talk about having healthy sex after being sexually abused, because that's important to me. I'm like, I don't want no motherfucker who was in my life for however many years, and I experienced this, however many abuse, or this happened, and I had experienced date rape as well. I don't want to have that stop me from having a great, awesome, spiritually connected sex life. Hell no. And I actually have lost speaking engagements because I've spoken about that, because I've been told, whoa, you can talk about violence against women, but not healthy women's sexuality. And I'm saying it's all connected. I totally get that. Me personally, I can come off like, some people just love me. They're like, I love you so much. And there are shirts that say, I love Angela Shelton. And then there are people that are like, what the fuck did she say? Oh my God, how dare she? How dare she have a shirt that says, I love Angela Shelton? Well, let me tell you something. That shirt, I love Angela Shelton, represents resilience, represents women who, not even women and men, that have not killed themselves, that have transformed their life, have survived some shit. Like if you see an I love Angela Shelton anything, sticker, people, lifelong friends have been made from people who had a sticker on their car. No joke, like that. There's the stories that are so great. And the funny thing is, the irony here is I'm not Angela Shelton. I wasn't born Angela Shelton. I chose that name because when I was 18, because I didn't want to carry my father's name, because of the whole abusive past with his family, and I didn't want to have that name attached to me. I chose the name Angela Shelton, and hell yeah, I love her. I love me some Angela Shelton. And with me, it's gonna be full circle. My band, it's a compilation band. It's like not just a band. It's like that's a whole thing. It's called Angela Shelton Full Circle because it's full circle. And so here, I have been, like I said, down every highway. I have a place to stay. God love you all. In every city in this entire country. Like literally, I can get on my phone and be like, I'm coming. And they're like, are you going to stay the night? I'm like, hell yeah, I'm staying the night. I love that very much. I feel so wealthy. It really is. I'm like, I am so grateful for that. But that came from me traveling, telling stories, and listening. Simply listening. And what I discovered is that people are going through it. People are going through it. And all the people that I know are consuming content from so many different spots. Like oh my God, TikTok, YouTube, like Facebook. Most of my people that are on my email list. So please sign up. Love it. I'm transitioning. I'm making them different. I'm always trying new things. Hit me up. Always into learning new things. And so that's my people's email. And so I'm going to like open up to YouTube. I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, oh yeah, YouTube. Oh, if you start going back into my whole history of YouTube, there are some funny things on there. Cause I'm like, I don't know. I'm just kind of throwing stuff up. But now that we're in a new year and I do have all of this information, I'm just going to start sharing that that way you can share it and like share value with your friends and family to do this and this, because it's like the survivor manual. It's not a matter of being in competition. It's not a matter of being like, oh, well, that survivor did that and wrote that book. that means I can't. I'm like, hell yeah, it means you can and you should. And I'll help you if you want. And like right now, especially, is sharing information and having access to it and stopping the fear, of not doing it. Because this, when you've removed it and you're like, oh, right, I have this. I'm telling you, I say this from my experience, is like, oh, that's when I'm getting scared, because I'm like, what am I going to do with that? What do you mean? What do you mean I would have a aerial dance show? Wait, what? You can't do that. You're almost 50 years old. Hey, by the way, another thing, ladies, is all those negative thoughts that all those fellas, whoever they were, whatever jackass, that the good guys can't stand. The good guys are like, damn, that guy that got into her head. Like, that's another thing to change that I will help you with, is like all those guys are like, whatever. It's like your boobs are wrong, your ass is wrong, your face is wrong, like whatever. And that you've listened to. Yeah, I have a whole bunch of other stuff to like rid yourself of that bullshit. Because, yeah, you're hot as fuck. That's all I gotta say. And we're gonna be going full circle, and I'll be sharing as much as I possibly can on all the platforms. Bear with me, because, oh God, TikTok, dancing, maybe, with a sword. I love you. That was people who know me are going to be like, you're crazy. I see your bottle of loot back there. Hell yeah, you see my bottle of loot back here. And I am madly in love with you humans who are elevating and leveling up, and we are rising collectively, and we are rising at the same level and changing consciousness. What? Yes, and it's fun. It's fun. This is fun. Oh, and I'll leave you with this little thought. Sometimes, just to put it in your brain, you can get addicted to this. Because what would happen? What would happen if you didn't have this? What if you weren't relying on the story of your victimhood? What if you were given the means to fulfill your dreams despite what you've been through? That's my core mission, inspiring you to live happily ever after and be your true self and do it no matter what happened to you. Yeah, anything. I've heard it all. But, nothing surprises me anymore. And I love you. And I'm going to share more, and I'll get over my own fears of like, that is terrible lighting. What are you doing in that kitchen? That is not where you shot Stirring Up Trouble. You need a green screen. You need a better camera. All I can say, see my boxing movie. What? She's like a broken record. I am. I'm always going to be a broken record on See My Boxing Movie. I love you. Bye. Shut it off.